I have 9 children, 2 of whom I adopted from the jungle. I have a master's degree in national security with a focus on how free societies devolve into totalitarianism. And I'm a currently sitting delegate from the Eastern Panhandle, District 60, South Berkeley County. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, so I've been reading about you in the newspaper stories. You wanted to get on the ballot, but because of time restrictions to get enough signatures, you're now a write-in candidate. But
it wasn't just time restrictions. It was also the COVID restrictions imposed by Governor Justice. You know, I mean, all the venues were shut down. I couldn't have a big meeting. You weren't supposed to have more than 10 people together, and then it was 25. Everybody was scared to open their doors when my volunteers would go, and I would go and knock on their doors. You know, people would kind of peek out the window and say, "What do you want?" And I would tell them what I wanted, and they would decide that it wasn't worth, contracting COVID and dying a horrible death to speak to some guy who wants to be the governor. So, it was, and then of course the governor unilaterally moved the date of the primary, and I didn't start gathering signatures.
About that. Yeah.
So we lost a month of time that we could have been gathering signatures. We still got, we got 5,700, and we needed 7,200. And had we had another month, we were gaining momentum. We would have been fine, but it didn't work out. And of course, immediately everybody said, "Oh well, you gave it a nice try." And I said, "I'm not done yet." So here we are running a write-in campaign. And look, I'm not. The first thing I'm accused of is being a spoiler. Okay. I have no interest in being a spoiler. I intend to win, and the reason I intend to win is because I have 9 kids, and I want my kids to raise their kids in a free, just, prosperous, and secure land. And the only way that's going to happen is if we reestablish constitutional governance in West Virginia, because constitutional governance is what upholds and defends our individual natural rights, and then the ability to freely exercise those rights, which is known as liberty. The fact of the matter is that the only valid reason for any government to exist is to uphold and defend your individual natural rights. We don't have a valid government right now. We're actually living in a soft tyranny, and it's moving towards a hard tyranny. And you've got a chief executive who has usurped the authority of the legislative, and you've got a judiciary which is lying down on the job and won't stop him. And I can, the reason I say that is because when I couldn't get the legislature to call itself into special session, as a legislator, I couldn't get the legislature to take enough interest in the fact that Jim Justice was usurping their authority to actually call themselves into special session to do something about it. I then took him to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, which also said, well, we're not really worried about it. It's not a problem for us. So your institutions have lain down on the job, and basically the only option left for me is to run for governor. And, of course, the argument that I get from people who would otherwise uphold and defend the Constitution is that all I'm really going to do is make sure the bad guy wins. And the funny thing is, I've had both patriotic Democrats tell me that I was going to make the bad guy win, meaning Jim Justice, by taking votes from their guy. And I've also had Republicans tell me that I was going to make the bad guy win, meaning Salango, by taking votes from their guy. Well, the simple fact is I'm taking votes from everybody because they're not their votes. The votes belong to the voters. They are their sacred right, and I'm earning their votes.
Well, but the House did try to convene. It was the Senate that...
No, sir. The House... Well, here's the thing. You have to have 3/5 of the entire legislature agree.
So both houses.
Now, after 4 months of badgering all of my friends in the House of Delegates, I finally managed to get 59 others to agree with me that maybe this would be a good idea. But the Senate refused to do anything about it. And basically, your Senate is complicit in allowing Governor Justice to impose tyranny on the people of West Virginia.
Well, let's speak of specifics here. Your special session was going to deal with the CARES Act money and the appropriations of those funds?
Well, that's part of it.
Okay.
That's part of it, absolutely. But also it was going to deal with the fact that the governor is legislating from the throne. He's writing edicts, executive orders, which he's imposing on the people of West Virginia without any legislative support at all. Now, not without any legislative resistance at all right now at this point. But here's the thing. The governor doesn't make laws. The governor doesn't tell the people of West Virginia what to do. The governor is the chief executive, meaning he is the chief of the executive branch. So the only people he orders around, the only people over whom he has any directorial authority at all, is the members of the executive branch of the state government. So he is literally managing the executive branch of the state government in the name of the people of West Virginia, which means he's our employee, not our boss. And on top of that, he takes his orders from the legislature, which is the people speaking into the government through their elected representatives. We, the people, make the laws through our legislature. We legislate. And then the executive executes, which is why it's called the executive. And the chief executive's job is simply to ensure that the executive branch effectively, efficiently executes the legislation. That's all. That's his job. His job is not to tell you to stay home, to shut down your business, to give any order at all to any private entity at all. He has no authority to do that.
But there is something in the code that allows the governor to take, in emergency situations, executive action.
Okay, two things about that. First of all, you're talking about code versus Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Constitution trumps the code.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that, let me lay out what that is. Well, let me lay out what that is. Okay, first of all, let me give you some background. I have 15 years in emergency operations planning. I was one of the 3 people who helped to rewrite Louisiana's all hazards operations plan after Katrina and Rita. I worked in Maryland for a long time and helped build their system for responding to hurricanes and snowfall, massive snowfalls, and all the other hazards that they have to deal with. So I know what I'm talking about. Also, of course, I've read the West Virginia Code. What the West Virginia Code says is that if the governor determines that there is an impending or coming crisis, that he can impose, that he can declare a state of preparedness for 30 days. 30 days.
Hey.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So he can declare the state of preparedness for 30 days, which means that he has the right to organize the operations of the executive branch to function differently than it normally does, specifically to deal with this coming crisis. Now, the problem is you're supposed to start off with a base plan that everybody's already bought into. That's called an AHOP, an All Hazards Operations Plan. I used to write these for a living, okay? Mm-hmm. We don't have one. So you start with the base plan. Everybody knows what's expected of them. They know what their part is. Now, of course, it can't be specific to the actual mission because you don't know what the mission is until the crisis presents itself, the hazard presents itself.
Correct.
So a hazard is a potential emergency. A threat is a likely emergency, and an emergency is, you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
An emergency is impending or ongoing massive loss of human life, massive destruction of private property, or destruction of key critical infrastructure. Which of that has happened in the past few months?
None that we know of.
None of it. There you go. So at the end of that 30 days, by code, by West Virginia state law, the governor either has to end his state of preparedness or he has to declare a state of emergency. If he declares a state of emergency, then his ongoing powers to re-coordinate actions within the executive branch continues. But if he doesn't, if he just lets the state of preparedness end, then he returns everything basically back to normal. Now, returning things back to normal doesn't necessarily preclude having that plan ready to go, having the legislature on speed dial so they can come in and appropriate funds. It doesn't preclude any of that. What it does do is allow him to continue pretending like he is a king in a time of crisis, in a time of war, and then he has special powers that he wouldn't have otherwise. That's what really happened. So let me tell you how I would have handled it if you got a second.
That was my next question.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I would ensure that we have an AHOP, an All Hazards Operations Plan, that all agencies are bought into it, that the civil agencies are in charge of it, that the National Guard is playing backup in each of the 16 emergency support functions, transportation, medical support, that sort of thing. So the National Guard wouldn't take lead on any of it at all, period, ever, because the military works for the civilians. And you're talking to a retired military officer, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's the way our country works. The military works for the civilians, period. So the military supports the civil authorities. So we have this AHOP. It's sitting there. We've got it exercised. We've been practicing it. Everybody understands what their part is in it. We get word that there's an impending or that there's a potential hazard. Mm-hmm. So we need to consider how we might deal with it. I would call in all the department heads. I would call in the legislature. I would call the legislature in a special session immediately.
You would have convened the legislature.
I absolutely would have called the legislature in a special session. I would have briefed everyone available. I would have taken the time to let them know, here is our AHOP. You guys have all studied it. You've all rehearsed it. You know what we're doing. So here's what we think is probably coming. Please adjust your plans accordingly and advise everyone else. Here's how we all stay in touch. We've got a phone, we all know how to get in touch with each other. And then I would send the legislature home, but I would put them on recess. Okay? Mm-hmm. In other words, I can call them back at a moment's notice. So put them on recess because I don't want to pay them $35,000 a day to sit around and wait for a crisis.
My next question was going to be, would you pay them during the recess? Okay.
Well, that one day, of course, I'd have to pay them $35,000, because that's what it costs to keep the legislature in session. And I would send them home, but I'd put them on recess. I wouldn't dismiss them. Okay, so in other words, they're on standby. They're on call.
They're not adjourned.
No, they're not adjourned. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So I would send them home. But at the same time, I would say, look, you need to pay attention. You need to look at what's going on because when we reach this trigger point in this operation, when this situation occurs, I need you to come in and appropriate these funds for this purpose. Because this is in our plan. This is going to happen. We have some idea of how much it's going to cost to accomplish these tasks that need to be accomplished when we reach this point. Please be ready to come in at a moment's notice. Okay? And then I would continue to monitor the situation, maintain what we call in the Army situation awareness. So I would have a common operating picture. In other words, make sure everyone understands what's going on, all the people who are engaged. And then I would send them off to do their duties, and I would keep tabs on them. That's what a good leader does. Lets other people do their jobs and keeps tabs on them. So as I continue to watch the situation, given the situation we actually have, ultimately I would have just ended the state of preparedness. But kept everybody on alert, said, look, if this thing's coming, sooner or later it's going to hit us, and we don't know what the impact's going to be. We need to be prepared to deal with it. Now, let's talk about how the executive branch might deal with such a thing. First of all, the executive branch has no authority over private citizens or private entities, clubs, churches, schools, anything like that.
That goes to what level, you think? The municipal level, county level?
Sir?
That's who should what level do you think should actually take care of those individuals? The civic?
Well, wait, we're not talking about taking care of them. We're talking about having authority over them, tell them how to run their business and their lives.
Let's clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you. And I also want to make sure that everyone understands I'm talking about private entities, private schools. Okay. Public schools are government entities. The government has all authority over them. Now, I may or may not agree with what was done with the schools, but the governor does have authority to take such action over the schools. Frankly, I think that authority should be pushed down to the lowest level possible and allow the county school boards to handle that business with input from their community. But anyway, so I put everybody, all the government entities, send them back to work to do their normal jobs. I do not tell any private citizens or entities what to do, but I keep everybody informed, and I keep the government on a short leash, especially the legislature, to let them know there's going to come a time, and I'm going to need you to come in and appropriate funds, because that's your job, to appropriate funds. It's not mine as the governor. And then I would have ended the state of preparedness. Now, had things gone differently, had we been hit like New York City was, which doesn't make any sense because our population density is nothing like theirs, but just saying that things had really gone south in West Virginia, I would have had those people ready to come in and do their jobs, and they would have already known what they needed to do because they had the information. We had a plan. We'd shifted. We'd refined the plan to deal with the actual situation, and we could take off and go. And that's the way these things should be handled. You don't handle these things by just ham-fistedly shutting everything down and telling everybody what to do.
In other words, you wouldn't have put the state under house arrest.
That's a great way of putting it. I wish I'd thought of that. No, that is absolutely true. The government has no authority over private citizens, private entities. Well, it doesn't. The government works for us.
You sound very passionate about it. We're speaking with S. Marshall Wilson, independent writing candidate for the governor of West Virginia. And Mr. Wilson, you mentioned briefly about schools. What about this controversy of the Harvard model and then the Jim Justice model of color coding for schools? How do you feel about that whole controversy?
Well, let me tell you what I would do as governor, if you don't mind. First of all, I would consult with a large number of recognized experts. But this is critical, too. You have to understand that a leader's job is not to focus on one specific issue. A leader's job is to see the big picture, to have an overarching vision, and to lead the entire entity through that situation. So let me give you an idea. I commanded 130 men in combat in Iraq. I commanded a sapper company attached to the Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force. Okay, we did some really weird stuff. I had things going on all over the country. If at any time when some of my guys were in a firefight, I had taken all of my time and energy and focused on that one mission, I would have lost track of other missions, and the other missions would have gone south very rapidly, and I would have lost men, and I would have lost missions, and we would have been in a lot of trouble. What I'm getting at is the governor's job is not to determine that there is some issue that might be a problem, put all of his time and energy into it, focus the entire government on that one issue, and forget about everything else. That's not his job. His job is to find people who can manage that situation, let them manage it. He continues to keep tabs on it, and then he continues to manage the rest of the state, the state government. So, that was a severe leadership failure to suddenly just drop everything else and go running to this COVID thing. And that indicates to me that it's really not about helping anybody. It is about centralizing control. And I think you guys, you sound pretty smart. You guys are pretty aware, I think, that that is a standard leftist technique to find any issue that might get people's attention, anything that can make them emotional, and immediately turn it into something big and unmanageable for the average person and tell them, the government is your daddy. The government, only the government has the power and has the authority and cares enough for you to do anything about this. Put your trust in the government. Lay your lives at the feet of the government, and we will keep you safe. The government can't keep you safe from a virus. The government has nothing that allows it to keep you safe from a virus. You can decide how to behave to prevent yourself from contracting a virus, but frankly, what you need to do is be prepared to deal with the ramifications of the ultimate contact, because it's most likely going to happen. The other thing is that what the government can do is provide resources, provide opportunities, provide information, and support the actions of the actual entities that are helping people.
Hey, speaking of resources, if
Yes,
Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, called you as governor and said, "Hey, I'm sending over $1.27 billion for you to use during this crisis," would you still have a cash balance of $1 billion on this day, October 16th? How would you have would you have
Well,
gone
if I
to
got that phone call, the first thing that I would do is I would turn to one of my staff members and say, type me up a memo right now. I want to call in the legislature, write a letter, because that's how they do it. The governor has to write a letter stating why he's calling the legislature in. I'd say, get the legislature in here. We need to appropriate these funds, and they're the guys who appropriate. Now, I would bring my staff together and say, okay, what do we need to spend money on? We need to go in front of the legislature tomorrow morning and explain to them where this money needs to go and why.
I see. Hey, and just out of curiosity, and don't mean to put you on the spot, but...
Put me on the spot. Do that to your politicians. Ask them hard questions and demand clear answers. That's the way we stay free.
Why do you think the Senate did kind of roll over?
Well, I don't have to speculate about that. I know very specifically why. Mm-hmm. It's an election year. The Republicans currently have a very slim control of the Senate. You have a nominal Republican governor. It's a misnomer. It's kind of an ironic name for him. But anyway, so it's an election year, and they want the, quote, Republican governor to win, and they want to maintain control of the Senate. So, of course, if they call in the legislature, if the legislature calls itself in, then there's this great fear that the Democrats will stir up trouble, will come up with weird ideas that the Republicans don't want to deal with. That's what's really going on. So, in my estimation, that is, at a minimum, is dubious reasoning. But what it really results in is they are propagating the tyranny of Jim Justice, who has usurped their authority by not allowing the people. We, the people, are the true rulers of this land. By not allowing the people to speak through their elected representatives in the legislature, they are not only allowing, but they are actually solidifying Jim Justice's tyranny over the people of West Virginia.
Well, that is a position and a
bold statement.
Yes, on this whole thing that we haven't heard.
Well, I've been saying it for months. I simply, I didn't inherit $1 billion like that other guy did, so I can't buy a whole bunch of TV ads. And then, of course, every time I send out a press release, it just completely gets ignored because every major media member that I've spoken to, a lot of the guys who aren't quite top of the heap will have me on their shows. and then a lot of people who are just interested in getting out the truth. But of course, they're few and far between. But most of the media people simply tell me, well, you're not really a valid candidate. Not enough people know about you. And I say, well, great. Let me on your show. And they say, no, you're not. We don't want you on our show because not enough people know about you.
And then when the debates come, you have to meet a certain threshold of...
Well, you know what we did, right? You know what my campaign team did?
No,
Yes,
what's that?
We actually set up, one of my campaign volunteers, good friend of mine named Jonathan Burrell, set up his basement as a TV studio. And then we did a Facebook Live where we set, in the TV studio, we had his big screen TV up there. We ran the debate, and then I would respond to the questions. I was standing in front of a podium, and Jonathan actually, had a TV camera, and he filmed me responding, and then we did this Facebook Live. It's on my Facebook page, and
Hey, very innovative.
Well, plug that Facebook page for us before we have to let you go. We're coming up on the hard break.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let me plug my website instead. It's marshall4wv.com, MARSHALLFORWV.com. And, of course, you can get to all my social media through that website.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, Marshall Wilson, thank you so much for stopping by. We wish you well on November 3rd.
I sure do appreciate you, gentlemen. Take care.
Take care. That's Marshall Wilson, write-in candidate